problem because it's the first time that the industry is thinking about it. This is something very, very important. I don't remember the word. Um, the mesh deformation, Look at, come in. This is an analog WhatsApp, Look at this WhatsApp after milling. Do you think that is the same? No, absolutely no. Because the dental technician look for one shape that is something similar of this and put this shape from the library inside of this shape. Yes, and after the software adapt all the cervical part to the cervical preparations, have a mesh deformation in this area. If you see the incisal area, and if you compare the incisal area, you can understand that are something similar. But if you compare the cervical area, you can see that are absolutely different because the software adapt the library shape to the final preparation. Because these dental technicians don't choose the library shape thinking about the lag. For this reason, it's very important when you choose a library, please choose the library by thinking about the lag. If I have this lag preparation, I choose the library thinking about it. Because if I have one library shape that have more or less this lag, but my mesh deformation will be nothing or near nothing. But if I have, look at 4 different lags, the same library, and I put the same library in these lags, always when the software look for the final preparation, always I will have a big deformation mesh. For this reason, it's very important to understand that the shape library, we need to choose the shape library thinking about the cervical area, the cervical shape area, the lag. Okay, for this reason, look at here. I have the same library, the same shape, but only the lag is changing. This lag is thinking about this lag. It's very important that if you have one lag like this, you need to look for one library that have one lag similar of this. This is something very, very important. Because, wait a moment, I want to, here. Because the triangles, the mesh that we have inside the shapes, like the libraries, yes, are something very, very important because the triangle size is the resolution. If I touch the triangles, I will change the resolution. Look at this tooth is the same tooth than this, but here I have a lot of resolution and here I don't have too much resolution. Possible in the computer, you can see one shape that is nice for you. This is nice, it's perfect, yeah? And you make everything. But after meal, if you don't have resolution, you don't have a nice shape because the triangles will be big. This is like the pictures. How many pixels have your picture? You have a lot of pictures. You have a nice resolution. If you don't have too much pixels, you have a shit resolution, And this is the same, always is the same. After milling, it's not nice. But the library's regular number triangles is 20,000 triangles. 15,000, 20,000 triangles. But look at, if you change the shape with the mesh, the triangle's shape are changing. Look at here. The triangles are smaller and here are bigger and here are bigger. If the triangle is big, you don't have less resolution. For this reason, it's very important, please don't touch the mesh. Don't touch the mesh. Look for shapes that have a nice shape for this mesh, for this tool that you need, okay? Okay, my friends, my English is terrible. But digital or analog, and at the end, we always will make the same, static results. In this case, we make veneers, okay? But look at why the patients are coming to the dentist look for static results. Possible because the patient have a trauma, or possible because the patient is bruxisms, or static problems, or dark colors, or agenesis, or because the patient have diastemas of periodontal problems. Always is the same. We need to start with a wax-up. But always that you need to make a wax-up because the patient have a trauma is not a problem for you. This is not a problem for you because you have a lot of information in the model. To make a wax-up for a trauma patient is something very, very simple because you have a lot of shape information in the model. The bruxism is the same. You have a lot of natural tooth, a lot of natural substrate in the model. You can take a lot of parameters to make your wax-up. It's not difficult to make a wax-up for a bruxism people. But aesthetic problems sometimes are difficult, sometimes are not difficult. This is true, depending on the case. Dark color preparations for us, only the most important thing is the space, not the shape. The wax-up is something important, of course, but the dark color preparation needs space to block the dark color preparation. Always that I make a wax-up, thinking about one dark color preparation, always I make a wax-up with a little bit more volume because I will need more space to block this dark color preparation. For me, one of the most difficult cases to make a wax-up is the agenesis because the volumes of the tooth are not true. You need to make, in this case, the laterals are canines. The canines are premolars, you know? You need to change a lot of the optical shapes. And this is something that is difficult. But in these cases, the wax-up is absolutely important. It's like the diastemas. If I need to close the diastemas with only 2 veneers, I need to change a lot of the morphology, because I need that the restorations look for a small side, you know, and this is something important. Look at this case, you know, I close the diastemas with the canines, and the diastemas, if you see the diastemas are between lateral and centrals, but all the diastema, I transmit the volume to the canines because I don't want that the laterals have are big, you know. The digital is exactly the same, always is the same. But the digital for me is something very interesting because you can change everything very fast. You can change the composition, the shape very fast. I don't like this library, I change the library. I don't like this side, I change the side. Only be careful. Remember, don't deformation the mesh. This is something absolutely important. Okay, here we have one very important concept when we make a wax-up. When we make analog wax-up, we don't have the patient expression in our hands on the table. Yes, we can imagine from the pictures, and always is more difficult that if you have the patient inside the computer and you can put your wax-up and you can try your wax-up inside the patient mouth because you can see the aspect, you know. And this is something that I prefer. One tip, one thing that because I prefer digital wax-up is because I have a lot of information inside the computer. I have the patient expression inside the computer. Now, when I make something, when I make an anterior group, when I make canines, laterals, and centrals, after I try the library shape, I have, because with the library, remember, I have the proportion, I have the volume, yes, and I have the shape. Only need look for the size and look for the composition. The composition is the most important thing after choose the library. And look at this. If I make the laterals a little bit more short, I change a lot of things. And in this picture, I change only the high lateral. I don't change too much things, you know. If I change the lateral position, look at the lateral, you know, I change only a little bit the lateral position. If I make the lateral in this position, immediately the centrals will have more protagonism and the kinins will have less protagonism. But if I change the lateral position, look at now, like this, immediately change a lot because now the centrals have less protagonism and the kinins have more protagonism. The laterals, for me, is one of the most important tooth in the anterior region, because if you play with the lateral positions, you can give more volume, you can give more protagonism or less protagonism to the centrals and the kinins, because centrals and kinins are the most important tooth in the patient smile. How much centrals the patient show is something very, very important if you think about sensuality expression. For this reason, a lot of things, you need, I need that the patient show me more central, yes, and you change the central side, or you change the central width, or you change the central position. Please, first thing, think about the laterals. It's more interesting change the laterals position than change the central's position, because the central's position is something that is danger to change, you know. Look at this. This is something interesting, you know. This is a case, and I make the wax up. This is the wax up, okay, in the patient mouth. Look at here. This is one possibility. Remember what the patients want? The patients want straight incisal position, yes, because they want that all the incisal line, the incisal edge positions are in the same lines, you know. But if you change a little bit this, if I put only a little bit, half millimeter in the centrals, look at, change a lot, change a lot. This is something that is very important, because always the patients want everything line in the same level, you know, right? But this is not sensuality. If you want sensuality in the patient expression, you need to look for always that the centrals have more protagonism than the laterals. If you change the laterals here, yes, if you change the laterals high and you put the laterals high in the same level high, you can see that the patient smile is older, absolutely older, because lost sensuality. The sensuality always is in the centrals. For this reason, if you play with the laterals positions, change a lot of things. Look at this. Here you can see, you have the same centrals, but you have two different laterals, one shorter, other longer, and change a lot of. Here we have more sensuality than here, because here we have more central protagonism, you know? Look at here. I have the same laterals, exactly the same laterals here than here, but I change the distal angle of the centrals. Here I have more incisal triangle. Here I have less incisal triangle. This central is more square. This central is more triangle. What I have, if I have more incisal triangle, I have more sensuality too, because I can see more the centrals. Always that you see more central, always you will have more sensuality. This is absolutely important in patient smile. It's something that I have always in my WhatsApp's time. Insides of triangles and lateral positions is the most important thing for the WhatsApp in the anterior region. Absolutely, is the most important thing. Look at here. Here the central is triangle. Here the central is a square. This is not important. This is something that is not important. The important is the insides of triangle or the lateral position. Look at here. Now I have the same centrals, but I change the laterals high. Now I have more sensuality here than here because I have more central protagonism here than here. And always it's the same. I am playing with half millimeter more lateral, half millimeter less lateral, half millimeter more triangle, half millimeter less triangle. And you can change a lot of the patient's mind only with this, inside the triangle and lateral side or lateral position. Always that I make a anterior region or anterior group, the canine to canine, always for me the most important thing when I have all the tooth inside the computer placing, or I have the wax in the model, always my mind is thinking about insides of triangles and lateral positions. This is the most important thing. Play with this. How much triangles you will have, how much sensuality you will have your patients. This is something very important. But insides of triangle is something that is together, is close with the contact lines. How much contact you have, how much triangles. If you have a long contact line, yes, you will have a small insides of triangle. You will have a small contact line, you will have a big triangles. And this is, I don't know in other countries, but always in my courses, that in my dental training center, that come people from a lot of different countries. In the morphology course, we start making one anterior group, and the people is free that make whatever they want. And always the big mistake is that they make a long, very, very long contacts. Long contacts is not something important, because if you have a long contact, always you will have less triangles, yes? Will be like a domino, you know domino? Okay, my friends, this is something interesting. Look at this case. Here's a WhatsApp, okay? I will change a lot of the aspect of this side, yes, but only changing the insides of triangles. Look at that. This is the real side, the real width. Look at when I change the insides of triangles, change a lot of, and I don't change the width, I don't change the height, I only change the insides of triangles. Insides of triangles is one thing that changes a lot of the patient expressions. Look at last slides. This is a case, yes, a real case. This is veneers, but with a very, very small buildup, very, very small, only one coping with IMAX and one very thin layer, yes, internal stain technique with Evocolor, and a very, very thin layer with a mixture of incisal and opal FF1. And look at the result. The result is very, very nice, absolutely nice, yes? But because the most important is not in the color, the most important is in the shape. And if you see the shape of this case, is a very, very simple case. Shape, sorry, very, very simple. Don't have too much things, don't have concavities, don't have lines. It's only volume, width, and incisal triangles. And look at the lateral position. The lateral position is giving the central protagonist, because always I look for it. Look at, this is a natural tooth, a natural central. If you see the morphology is simple, absolutely simple. And this is one of the most difficult things. My teacher, my real teacher in my life, well, was and is, because he always is my teacher, is Klaus Muttert, is from German. And Klaus always told me, August, the most difficult thing is to make simple. The most easier thing is to make complicated. This is for me something that always have in my mind, because it's a real truth, it's a real idea. No? If you see the natural shape, you can see that the natural shape are something simple, you know. Okay, my friends, thank you for your attention to be here. I will